Dune Spice was released from Early Access on September 4 of 2023, after a year in Early Access in Steam. The game sets itself in the acclaimed Dune universe created by Frank Herbert, where an empire drowned in corruption and old bloodlines is set to change with the arrival of the Kwisatz Haderach, a prophecy by the Bene Gesserit of a man with the powers of the voice. It's designed to be a 4X RTS, borrowing elements of these genres create a unique blend of strategy never seen in the industry before. The standing games and franchises that try these mixtures are Total War, Stellaris, and Bannerlord. Even then, Total War is presenting its 4X mechanics in a turn-based format, having only battles in real time, and Bannerlord has a deep RPG focus that manages to take up most of its playtime. These games, despite being a mixture of genre mechanics, are focused on a foundation and complement them with the other mechanics. Dune tries to create one without complements, but a genuine integration of both experiences. Does Dune Spice Wars create a unique blend of 4X and RTS elements inside the Dune universe? At first glance, it seems like it does, but you should never judge a book by its cover. Appearances, if managed well, can deceive what lies under the table. The different elements you need to manage and alongside the victory conditions highlight a broad abstract view of an infrastructure, but the execution is what counts when declaring the title. 4X is an acronym for the possibilities inside of a grand strategy game, as it is also known. The X's stand for expand, explore, exploit, and exterminate. Actions that are achieved through the road of victory. These victory conditions are usually divided between military, cultural, religious, economic, and scientific. That is obtained by achieving the required conditions inside the value assigned for them. The games in this genre are not homogeneous and have requirements that reflect the mechanics for an economy or political/cultural victory in their respective games. Total War games with the ability to win a cultural or economic victory give you objectives with a mixture of conquest, diplomatic exploitation, and cultural dominance. You still need to conquer settlements and forge alliances, but there is a higher focus on the use of agents and faction-specific buffs that give you an edge on the diplomatic front. Total War gives you a limited front on this side, favoring an expansion in the RTS section of the game with flashy, tactical battles that evolve with terrain and unit composition. Civilization 6, on the other hand, gives you a myriad of cultures and characters to achieve this victory, generating a map at the start of every game you play, placing valuable buffs or resources needed to achieve this victory faster. Cultures have an affinity towards certain victories, but they are achieved in the same manner. You plan, execute, and exploit. Everything at your disposal over a turn assigned for every movement or construction available. They achieve this complexity by focusing on their path to victory inside of their slow-paced managerial game. RTS is an acronym for real-time strategy games, where the games run in a passage of time that is according to the passage of time in reality. These games don't focus on various forms of victory. Instead, they're known for their fast-paced gameplay, where a planned build alongside specific development trees and unit compositions wins the day if they're executed well. These games reward understanding and quick reactions to the changing fronts on the battlefield, but condensing them to various lanes inside a map with predetermined resource points. The most important thing in these games are map knowledge, faction matchups, and good management of combat engagements, making sure you don't lose more than your enemy. This ends up creating exhilarating combat and visuals of strategic prowess that are interesting to watch and must be exceptional to play. Dune creates the systems and designs their critical path with similarities to these genres and manages to put a working game with a unique loop and experience. They provide victory paths for domination, political, assassination, economic, and hegemonic, where you quickly rack up value in interconnected currencies that help you achieve the conditions for the victory you're going for. This doesn't flow smoothly, however, and upon inspection has much to be desired. In theory, this sounds quite interesting, and upon initial play definitely captivating. This doesn't go for long. As you play, there's an understanding that sets the initial awe in a less favorable view. Every victory path is straightforward. Domination, destroying the enemy capital. Assassination, increase information on a targeted faction, to then execute an assassination mission on the faction leader. If successful, the match is won or the player is eliminated. Economic, achieve 50% of all CHOM shares to win the game. Political, amass political positions with influence and votes in order to hold important titles and eventually qualify for Dune governorship, and hold for 45 days in order to win. Win through an abstract value system that tracks annexation of special regions, counts avoiding successes, and production buildings that increase the value of your hegemony until you reach the limit of 25k. They are distinct and focus you through a specific line of development and advancement that gets you close to each of these conditions. We have to remember they're interconnected, as they use the same currencies to help each other. The currencies used to achieve these victories are influence, a value added through buildings that represents the ability to gain extra votes in the Landsrand Council voting; intel, value added with buildings that represent the ability to execute missions on territories and factions; authority, passive value that dictates when you can annex a territory; water, and arbitrarily needed for annexation, but provides supplies for units globally; and spice, the core resource that gives you access to Solari, the money of the game, and bonuses from the exchange in order to trade. Spice being the most important of all, as it produces the exchanges with Solari in order to fund your development for the faction. Without spice, there is no money; without money, no water; without water, useless authority and meaningless influence and intel. No hegemony growth. You can't win without having control of spice. The substance and its exchange rate dictates the rhythm of your advancement in technology and army buildup. There is no economic victory without it, no reason to influence and no means to defend yourself, and no politics. The only way you can get to the spice is through expansion. But this is where the issue lies. The victories available are worthless and unachievable without it, meaning in the least, quick expansion is an obligation, and so an army to protect it. This means every session of Spice Wars begins the same way, progresses equally for all, with the possibility of ending differently depending on the skills of the player. The main reason for this is its real-time strategy influence. Following in the same vein as its inspiration, there is a predetermined way to build each faction toward victory with little influence from the geographical RNG present in level design. Independent on where the spice is, there you must go, as it determines your avenues to victory. There isn't much to guess either, as the RNG is quite generous when placing these spice fields. They're all over the map and are plenty for everyone. The differences range in how to invest these earnings early and how to make space for possible victories, but with competent players, there is little room for abstract victories. The map is small, emulating Frank Herbert's design of such, you can't run, and your opponents can access you quickly in a match. This makes achieving the multiple victories difficult, assuming there is no mistake made among players. There is little chance a game simply goes to hegemony. Economy is not a particular challenge, and politics could take just as long as or longer than hegemony to reach inside the session. You also need to master kiting in your fights, as level design doesn't emulate its RTS inspirations well. Forced to accommodate its 4X and RTS elements into one has left it bearing little fruit to satisfy, none less the lover of Dune. There's not much to think about in terms of army composition. Every faction has an equivalent of its own unit, if not an emulation, but similar to not be different in use. Everyone has a primary melee unit, an anti-armor squad, a specialist unit that varies but with one faction, this being the Fremen and their turret, finally an elite melee unit. They also have two types of aerial units, a fighter and a carrier that is stronger than the fighter. There is an armory that changes the manner in which a unit damages others outside of this. Nothing is different. Your enemies will always have the same units you expect, if they're playing well, of course. Something that I wanted to add is that the concept of it being a board game is exceptionally absurd. It's a comment I've seen and suspect they don't play these games. Board games like Monopoly, Dungeons and Dragons, and even the Dune board game is exclusively turn-based, and it gives you a reasonable number of resources in order to warrant the time for a turn. Having said all, does Dune Spice Wars create a unique blend of 4X and RTS elements inside the Dune universe? At first glance it seems like so, as it presents in theory what makes a 4X game, but fails to create the avenues to achieve them by focus, instead presenting them as an option for the players capable of obtaining them. Dune Spice Wars is simply an RTS. It resembles the matches of StarCraft 2 and Command & Conquer than any of the managerial improvisation needed and expected of such games like Civilization, Age of Wonders, Endless Space, Victoria, Hearts of Iron, and Europa Universalis. Those that enjoy, I salute you, but it's simply not what they present it to be. Thank you.